Okay, so for example number 1 on your paper, you're going to do the following. You're going to first determine the value of x when y equals 0. So we're first going to determine what the x value is going to be. Then we're going to go through and determine what the y value is going to be when x equals 0. So take this equation and write that equation in that little box on the top of example number 1. So the equation goes in the box, and then we're going to work side A first, then we'll work side B. So when you go to solve these, what I want to see on your paper is side A. The first one we're doing is A here, when the value of x when y equals 0. So we're going to start with y equals 0 for the A side. The B side is then going to be x equals 0. On every problem on your worksheet and on your quiz, we're always going to start with, can you guys see that okay? Yeah. Y equals 0. Now, I'll switch colors here. No. So, when I go through and I solve this equation, this first time I'm going to solve it, substituting for which variable? Y. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to put 3x plus 2. What do I substitute for y?
Teachers, pardon the interruption. Here's a
0 equals 6.
Junior NHS candidate.
Okay, so basically now we just have an equation we're going to solve for. So I'm going to circle my variable. I'm going to draw my line of equality. Now let's make this a little easy on ourselves. Anything times 0 is going to be 0. So do I really need to rewrite 3x equals 6? Do I really need to worry about 2 times 0? No. So because it's a positive, I'm just going to go ahead and cross that out just like that. It looks sloppy, but that's okay. And now I just have 3x equals 6. So how do I get the x by itself? By 33. Okay. So then x equals 2. Now, we need to write an ordered pair because we need 2 ordered pairs in order to graph a line. So x is equal to what? What does my x equal on this side? 2. So I'm going to put my x value is 2, comma. Then what was my y value?
0.
0. So there's my first ordered pair. So now I need to find a y value. So this time I'm going to go through and substitute for x. So x equals 0. So I use the same equation. So I'm going to take 3 times, what am I substituting for x? 0. This is going to be on the part B side. So this is the part B side. So 3 times 0 plus 2y equals 6. Okay? Again, I'm solving an equation, so I'm going to circle my variable. I'm going to draw my line of equality. Anything times 0 is 0. So I'm just going to get rid of that. I don't need it. So now I have a positive 2y divided by 6. So how do I get the y by itself? Divide by 2. Divide by 2. So what does y equal?
2.
6 divided by 2?
3.
Yeah, 3.
Oh, 3.
Yeah, you said 3. You're right. So now I need to come up with another ordered pair. So for part B, side B, what was my x value?
0.
And what's my y value? So that's all we're doing today, for the most part. There's going to be a couple other different examples that we're going to talk about, but that's the gist of it. We're done with example 1, that's it. Now, eventually, we're going to build upon that. You'll get your 2 ordered pairs, then you'll graph it. Okay, let's take a look at the next part here.
She is with the first part.
Okay, so example number 2. So this goes in the second example box. We have 2x minus 4y equals 12. That shows decent. Okay. So again, we always start by my A side or my left side is going to be y equals 0. Then my B side or my right side, I'm going to use x equals 0. Okay? So the first time I go through and solve, which variable am I substituting for? Which variable am I substituting for the first time through? Y. So what do I substitute for it? No, what do I substitute for Y? 0. So I circle my variable, I draw my line of equality. Oh, that's really hard to see too. I'm sorry, guys. I'll find some better pen colors. So here, what's negative 4 times 0? Still 0, so I can get rid of it. So how do I get the x by itself? By. So x equals what? 12 divided by 2? 12 divided by 2 is 6, yeah. Okay, so then I write my first order pair. So what's my x value? What did x equal? 6. What's my y value? 0. So if I would go to graph this line on my coordinate plane, I would plot my point on which axis?
The middle.
So if I had my coordinate plane here,
Oh,
would I be off of the x-axis or would I stay on that x-axis?
Stay.
Yeah, I'd stay right on that x-axis. All right, let's look at the next side then. So this time I have x equals 0. So what am I substituting for? X. What do I plug in for x? 0. So 2 times 0 minus 4y equals 12. Again, anytime we solve an equation, we circle our variable and draw our line of equality. The 2 times 0 I can get rid of because it's just 0. So now I have negative 4y equals 12. So how do I get the y by itself? Divide by what?
4.
What type of 4? There you go. Divide each side by negative 4. Y equals, very good, negative 3. So your x value is what? 0. And then what did we solve for our y value? Negative 3. Now, if you would go to graph those two ordered pairs, you'd have 1 point plotted on the x-axis, 1 point plotted on the y-axis, and then your graph line would intersect the x and the y-axis.
So the y gonna always be 0?
For this, yeah. You could pick some different ones, but it just makes it easier. Because if we would pick, let's say, y equals 2, well, then we have to sit there and work it all out. But if we just use 0, anything times 0 just cancels it out to 0. Okay. So now intercepts. Now, when we talk about an intercept, what does that mean?
To receive.
Uh-oh, it's freezing on me. There we go. Okay, so example number 3. So on your sheet, this is called an intercept. What do you notice that this line does?
Intercepts both the x and y axis.
Yeah, basically it means where the line crosses through the y-axis and the x-axis. So intercept is where that line crosses through the y and the x. So on your paper, what you guys need to define is what is the y-intercept? Or excuse me, we're going to find the x one first. So what's the x-intercept? Where does that line cross through the x? 2. So now we need an ordered pair. So your x-intercept is going to be 2. So then what's your y going to be for that ordered pair?
1.
No. So if the line crosses through the 2 here,
Oh.
0. Yeah. So now where does the line cross through our y-intercept?
1.
1. So what's my y value? What's my y value? 1. So what do I plug in for my x value?
0.
0. So do you see how the first example, how we would have a number value for the x and then a 0 for the y, and then we'd switch it?
So we put it in the box.
Go ahead and put those answers in the box. Yes. Okay. Go ahead and take a look at your examples 4 and examples 5 on your sheet. See what you can come up with. So try example 4 and example 5 on your sheet. Okay, so let's take a look again here.
2.0.
Where does your x, where does your line cross the x-axis?
-2.
Okay, so my x is going to equal
-2.
-2. Then what's my y value for that ordered pair going to be?
3, 0.
And then what's my y value? If I plot that point, my x will be -2, but then what will my y be for this ordered pair? 0. Good. So then, where does the line cross my y-intercept?
3,
So what's my y value?
3, 0.
Now remember, y value, does that come first or second?
Second.
Second. So what's my x value? 0. So basically, to get to my y, on the x-axis, you wouldn't move anywhere, so that would be 0. Then you just go up 3 to get your y, which would be 3. All right, example number 5.
Wait, what was for y again?
0, 3.
-3.
Okay. That was
That's the
positive
next
3.
one.
That was example 4. Okay, so again, where does the axis cross my y-intercept?
1,
The 1. So my x value is
1, 0.
1. My y value is 0. Okay. Where does my line intercept the y-axis?
-3.
So what's my x value going to be?
0.
0. And then my y?
-3.
-3. Got them all down? Make sure your ordered pairs always have parentheses around them. That way you know it's an ordered pair. Okay, so intercepts are where a line crosses on what? An intercept is where a line crosses and,
Line.
yeah. Okay. So the x-intercept is where the line crosses the, so think about it, the x-intercept is where the line crosses the
X-axis.
x-axis, yeah. So what will always be true for the x-intercept then? So if the x has a value, the y will be equal to what?
0.
So y will be equal to 0. So basically your ordered pair will be something, because we don't know what the x is, 0. I would write that down. Yeah. So the x-intercept, the y value will always be 0. Okay? The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. So then what's always going to be true for the y-intercept?
0. Any question?
Okay? So 0 and question mark. What's that 0 stand for? What value is the 0 there for?
X.
So x will equal to 0. You're nailing it today. All right, flip it over. Okay. So now, what you're going to do for example number 6 is you're going to graph the line with the x-intercept, then the y-intercept, and we're going to label that line A. So if we graph the x-intercept, we start at the origin. My x-intercept is 3. So how many spots do I move? Go over to the right, 3 spots. So I'm going to plot that line on my x-axis. So that's going to be my 3, which the y would be 0. So if I would graph my y-intercept then, I come to my y-axis, how would I graph -4 on the y-axis?
Go down 4.
Yeah, I just go down 4. And then you just graph your line using a straight edge. Make sure our line, we use a straight edge. We go to the end of our coordinate plane. The line goes through all plotted points and it has arrows. Now this line has a name. What's the name of this line?
Tremont.
Nah,
A line.
A. So we're going to go ahead and label it line A.
Yeah, we like.
Okay? Any questions on that one? Okay, let's go ahead and look at example number 7 then. So example 7, this time we're going to graph the y-intercept as a -6.
You're doing it on the same.
Yep, use the same coordinate plane. It stays on the same coordinate plane. That's why we're naming our lines, because you're going to have multiple lines on your coordinate plane here.
Oh.
So your x-intercept is a -6, so I start at my origin. Which direction do I go?
Left.
Left.
Now.
Left 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this ordered pair would be -6, 0. So now I need to graph my y-intercept. So where is that line going to intercept the y-axis?
Why is yours so much bigger than ours?
I have more grid lines. Yeah, mine's going to look a little bit different than yours. I have more grid lines than you. So how do I graph my y-intercept? I start at the origin, and what do I do? Go up 6. And then again, graph your line so it goes to the edge of each coordinate plane. It goes through both points, has arrows, and then name this line what?
B.
B. How do you guys feel about this so far?
It's easy.
It's
It's
easy.
easy. I
Good.
didn't understand at first. I didn't know what you were talking about. I thought you were.
Good.
Very slow.
All right. Last example, yeah? You don't want this on the video of what's going on with your belly? All right, example number 8. So this time we just gave you the ordered pairs. So we're going to graph for the y-intercept -3, 0, which means I start at the origin, and what do I do?
Go left.
Go left how many spots?
3.
And then, since we already know the y is 0, so I keep that on the y-axis. And then the y-intercept, I start back at the origin. The x is 0, but the y is what?
Go down 8.
Go down 8, good. And then I graph my line again, extending from the coordinate plane all the way to the other one. Ooh, that was a terrible line. I'm having trouble with this line. If you noticed? All right, that one's pretty good. And we're going to label this one line C. So at this point on that coordinate plane there, you should have 3 lines graphed. Any questions about that part? Okay. So the last 2 examples, what we're going to do is we're going to take examples 1 and 2, where we find the ordered pairs, and then finish it like what we did with examples 6, 7, and 8. So we're going to find what the ordered pairs are going to be, what the y-intercept will be, what the x-intercept will be, and then we're going to graph those lines. So, before we do that though, at the very bottom of your note sheet, where it says determine the intercepts, the bottom here. So for the y-intercept, and we kind of already talked about this on the first page here. So the y-intercept, the first bullet you want to put set x equals 0. So when we set x equals 0, we're actually solving for y. We need to find out what that y value is going to be. Then the last step is to write an ordered pair. So if we set x for 0, x is equal to 0, and then the y is what we're going to solve for. So then this goes on the bottom here. So then, what do you think I'm going to, for the x-intercept, what do you think the first bulleted point's going to say?
That's y 0.
Then what?
Solve for a.
Then write the ordered pair, which is already there for you. All right, and we have the last two example problems now. I can come back to it, okay? Okay, so example number 9. When you go to write this one down, what I highly recommend is that you put your equation right up by the example 9. If you write large like I do, I try to encourage you to write a little bit smaller, because you're not going to have a whole lot of space on your note sheet to show your work. Once you write your equation right next to that example number 9, what I do is I go ahead and draw a line through the middle. Because if you remember, we're going to have a side A and a side B. So the work that I'm going to want to see on your worksheets, the first thing that I'm going to do is set y equals 0. So y equals 0. So on the other side of my line, I'm going to put x equals 0. Okay. So then I'm going to come back over here and solve. So for my left side, what do I substitute for? What am I substituting for? What am I saying y equals?
0.
So I'm going to do negative 4x plus 3 times 0 equals 24. It's kind of a little cramped. So I'm going to circle my variable. I'm going to draw my line of equality. First things first. Cross out the 3 times 0. Then what do I do?
Divide by negative 4.
Divide by negative 4. Good, so x equals negative 6. So from here, I write my first ordered pair. So what does my x value equal? And what did my y value equal? Okay. So that's my first part. Now, second part, I come up to the other side of my line, and this time what am I substituting for? X. Because I'm trying to solve for y. So this time I'm going to write my equation, negative 4 times 0
Plus 3y equals 24.
Okay. And then I draw my line of equality. I circle my variable. And then the next step, get rid of my my negative 4 and 0. And then I want to solve for y. How do I get y by itself? By 3. So y equals? So what was my x value?
0.
And my y value? Okay. Now, the last step. We determine what the x-intercept is going to be. What's my x? Just looking at your ordered pair, what's my x-intercept? Where is that line going to cross through the x? Where's that line? What's my x side?
Negative 6.
What's my y value going to be? My y-intercept.
0.
What's my y-intercept going to be? Where's that line going to cross through the y?
8.
8. So you're going to go ahead and graph these two ordered pairs and draw your line. So the first one, you guys told me is going to be negative 6 on my y. So I'm going to come to my y-axis. I'm going to start at my origin, and I'm going to go to the left 6. And then my y is 0, so I stay put. So then I graph my second order pair, which would be my y-intercept. So my x value, I go 0, and y is a positive 8, so I count up 8. And then I go ahead and draw my line. You don't have to label this line because you're only going to have one line per coordinate plane. So basically you just took all the steps together and did it all at once. Questions on this one?
I think that's home.
No.
All right, let's take a look at this next one then. Example number 10, the last example. Again, write small. Give yourself plenty of room to show your work. Does pink show up? Yeah, you can see that all right. Okay, so again, I'm going to go ahead and just put a line down here to keep my sides separate. What do I set first? What do I set first? Y equals 0. Good. So on my left side here, I'm going to put y equals 0. Then on my right side, I'm going to go ahead and put x equals 0. That's going to be a point on every quiz or test. When you go to take a quiz or test, that's worth right here 1 point. Okay? So then I go back and I'm going to solve my equation, this time substituting for y. So how do I rewrite my equation if I'm substituting for y?
Wait, what?
How do I write my equation?
Oh, 4 negative. Oh, wrong one. 2x plus 5 times 0 equals 10.
Good. So I'm solving for x, so I'm going to circle my variable, I'm going to draw my line of equality, then what?
Cross out that 5 and 0.
Okay?
Divide
By,
2.
so then x equals,
5.
so for this ordered pair, what's my x value? Hey, Drew, put your hand.
0.
5, and what's my y value?
0.
0. Good. Drew. Thank you. All right. Somebody besides Trevon and Zane. How do I write my next equation? So, David?
You put
Not that I don't appreciate you guys.
2 parentheses 0 plus 5y equals 10.
Okay?
Scratch out the 2 times 0 and divide by 5 on both sides. And you'll get y equals 2.
Okay. Now your ordered pair. What's your x value?
0,
Your y value?
2.
All right. And then we graph. So, which value is going to be my x-intercept?
0, 2.
My x-intercept?
Oh.
5. Which value is going to be my y-intercept?
2.
The 2. So I'm going to graph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my y you said was 2.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure my line is straight, goes through all the way to the end of the coordinate planes. It has arrows. And that's it. Okay, let's ask you a bonus question.
What?
We are going to talk about slope on Wednesday. What kind of slope does this line have?
A negative slope.
What do you think?
It's a negative.
No, negative.
Negative. Yep. All right, that's it for the day.